Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being with us today to shine a light on the conservation of Taiwanese white dolphin, of which fewer than 60 individuals remain in Taiwan. Before we started, I would like to introduce our speaker, Robin, and Dr. John Wang. Robin Winkler is the founder of the Wild at Heart Legal Defense Association, which the organization has worked to monitor government conservation policy through public action litigation and support of independent scientific research on Taiwanese white dolphin. And Dr. John Wang from Canada is the leading expert of the Taiwanese white dolphin and had first scientifically documented the sighting of the Taiwanese white dolphin in 2002. Dr. John Wang is also the recipient of the Conservation Merit Prize from Marine Mammalogies International in 2021. Since 2006, Wild at Heart has worked closely with him and research and conservation effort related to the dolphins. These include the critical habitats, sustainable fisheries, and the offshore wind farm underwater and the underwater noise. And John and Robin have been deeply involved in the conservation efforts, and they will be sharing the insight of their experience. John, I'll hand over the microphone to you.
Thank you, Cindy. And very nice seeing you again. It's been a long time. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Good afternoon. I've been here about 3 months now, and I'm a little tired, and it's really hot in Taiwan. I was born in Taiwan, but I grew up in Canada, and Taiwan's temperature is about 15 degrees too hot for me. Okay, so it's, I came in here a little grumpy. And so over the last few months, I've been researching these animals, and I do this on an annual basis as much as I can, except during COVID when we were not, foreigners were not allowed to come into Taiwan. So what I think this press conference is meant to do, after speaking with Robin and his group, is to let everybody know, I wish I could come here today and say, yay, everything's great, everything's getting better. It's to actually bring very sad news. I've told Robin these animals are on the path to extinction. It's imminent now. If nothing gets done, these animals will be gone. Even if you can see a few for the next few years out there, there's no hope of saving them. Okay. So I'm going to give you a little bit of the background to get everybody caught up to speed as to what these animals are about, a little bit about the history, and then also to tell you why they are in the state that they are in now. Okay. I hope I don't make any mistakes. We've been going through some family issues over the last couple of weeks, so I was working on this talk, and then we had some family issues. I'm glad my wife is okay with me doing this while we're trying to get home. And she's from Brazil, so we're trying to get back home to Brazil for some of her family issues, and it's other sad things going on in our lives beyond the dolphins too. But I think this is one of these opportunities that I'm going to take to try to help these animals the best I can as a last-ditch effort. I think after today, if we do this and if there's no actions to help the animals, I would bet among all the earnings, or very little money that we have, that they're going to go extinct. Okay. So a little bit about the background of these animals. Now, I was invited here by Robin to express my opinions on these animals. It's opinions based on more than 35 years of working on these types of animals, the cetaceans, small cetaceans, the whales, porpoises, and dolphins around the world. I've been studying these animals since the late 1980s. And so I would like to think I have some expertise on how these animals are doing. So I'm going to share with you my expert opinion on the state of these dolphins, why they're in this state, and what can be done. There is hope. There is a way to help them. And there has been a way to help them for many, many years now. Okay? I'm not here to do any protests. I can't tell anybody that they must do these things. I'm here to tell you, if you want these dolphins to stay around in Taiwan, what must be done. Or you could decide not to save them at all. That's okay. That's up to the locals here. As Cindy mentioned, my team and I discovered these animals back in 2002. Before that, nobody knew these animals exist. At least scientifically, we didn't know they existed. We're pretty sure fishermen along the West Coast saw these animals on a fairly regular basis. They just didn't really realize what they were looking at. Okay? These animals, the Taiwanese white dolphins, also known as the Taiwanese humpback dolphins, it's a unique subspecies that's only found in Taiwanese waters. When these animals are gone, there is no replacement. There's no other animals that will replace the subspecies. Okay? They are only found in the shallow coastal waters along the west coast of Taiwan. And, after studying them for a few years, we knew we had something interesting. Of course, that joyous, wonderful event was really dampened by watching these animals for the couple of weeks that we were studying them in 2002. Immediately, if you study these animals well enough, long in the time enough, this type of animal, you start to get a very good feel for what's happening. And immediately, our joy was dampened by the thought that these animals are endangered. And after more studies, many years of studies after that, it's been confirmed. In 2008, we were able to list them in the IUCN Red List of Threatened Species. This is the world's authority on threatened animals and wildlife around the world. Okay, that's a very quick turnaround to get something listed. I worked on the IUCN Red List criteria in my younger days, so I knew what information needed to be collected immediately to get them listed. Okay, and that's what we worked on. Even at that time when we first discovered them in 2002, there probably wasn't more than about 100 animals left. So they've been suffering threats from the West Coast development and fishing and everything else for many, many years before we were even, exposed to these animals. Let's see. So where are they found? It's when you look at cetaceans, the whales, dolphins, and porpoises, this is one of the smallest distributions of any group of animals that we know of. Okay, it's only roughly about a 200-kilometer stretch of water, and they're not usually found more than about 1 or 2 kilometers from shore. They're very, very close. So that's the really surprising thing for this group of animals, why it took so long for science to find them, because they were right beside us in our backyards. Okay, so this is the main distribution in the blue area, and we have expanded that distribution a little further south with sightings after the initial work we did in the early 2000s, and as well up to Taoyuan, and potentially should have probably been as far as the Dunshui River estuary. All right, so this is considered a very highly restricted distribution for whales, dolphins, porpoises. There are no other species in the world that has such a small distribution. All right. They are year-round residents, so if you're able to go out in the wintertime, you will find the same individuals, same dolphins in these waters. They don't move anywhere. There's no seasonal migration. Right? This is their home. They stay here all year round. Okay, whoops. Yeah, so sorry. The order of the presentation got a little mixed up there. So the distribution should go as far as about the end of Tainan, around the Chigu area, and up to at least Taoyuan, and most likely in the past up to the Dunshui River estuary. These animals like to be in river estuaries. This is where they're making a living. The distribution, they're found in very, very shallow waters, very close to shore. You can see this animal on the left It was in about a meter or less than a meter and a half of water. I was in a meter and a half of water in our small boat, and it was even further inshore of us, and you can see where the waves are crashing over a sandbank there. So they're very close to shore, very shallow water animals. The demographics, this is where it becomes even more important. The distribution tells you something about how susceptible they are to human threats in a very small area. Population estimates we came up with better and better precision as the research went on over the years. Initially, we estimated the population to be about 99 individuals, already very vulnerable, very susceptible to human threats at that number. In 2010, using a different method, a much more precise method, you're looking at, down to the 75 range, 74 here in this case. 2017, lower, and after this summer's of research, it shocked me to see how few animals we've seen. Right? My personal guesstimate right now is probably somewhere between 45 and 50. So that's in about 20 years, they've declined by half of their population. That's becoming very serious, especially when you're looking at, if we roughly estimate half of these are females, half are males. There's probably 25 females in the population that remains. For mammals, females are the really important sex. Males don't matter too much. It's the females, right? They're the ones having the babies and putting the investment in. So all the males in this room were not very important when it comes to the human population. So if it's 25 females and about 60% of them are mature, you're looking at about 18-ish animals that can actually reproduce each year. It takes them about 5 years to produce one calf if the calf survives. They will produce more if the calf dies young, right? Most animals do that. So you're looking at a population, this entire subspecies can only produce 2 to 3 new babies a year. That's not very much, okay? So this is something I think a lot of fishermen are not quite understanding. They think dolphins reproduce like rabbits. These animals have the reproductive biology of killer whales, which are very, very slowly reproducing animals. And we're looking at these animals here in Taiwan as almost the same with regards to their reproductive abilities. It's not very good. Okay? So over these years that we've been looking at them, I've been following these animals for over 20 years now, and they're declining at roughly about 3 to 4% per year. So this is on top of their ability to reproduce, how many is taken out of the population. So every year you're reducing that population by 3 to 4% per year. That means the death rate is much higher than the birth rate. Okay? So that's important because it gets to a point where we are going to get, and we're getting very close to the point where there's going to be something called a vortex, an extinction vortex. They get to a certain level, they can't recover no matter what you do. Even though there's animals surviving out there, there's no way to recover them. Okay, so this is something that my wife is an expert on, extinction vortexes and predicting population viability, and we're getting very close. We don't know for cetaceans or just these types of animals around the world what that level is. There's never been a good study that's been following animals for this long, following how they're going extinct. So Taiwan may be the first. And it's sad for these animals, but at least that information will help other species, other populations around the world knowing at what level that we can't let the animals get down to. And we may have passed that, we just don't know. We think there's still hope, but we don't know. So as I mentioned, reproduction is super slow and limited output. So cetaceans in general, whales, dolphins, porpoise, they have very slow reproductive rates already. And these are even on the more extreme ends for this group of animals. All right. In 2008, I mentioned that we had gotten this subspecies listed as critically endangered. The latest update was in 2018. Periodically, the cetacean specialist group for the IUCN, they will ask for an update. We will help them with that, with the information we have. So the latest update was in 2018. The numbers had declined since then. Most of this information was still based on early data. We haven't released our 2023, 2024, and 2025 information. Of course, we just finished the 2025 information, data collection, and it's looking really bad, is what I can tell you. Okay. And 2018, they also, some conservation groups in the U.S. Lobbied the government to put them under the ESA, the United States Endangered Species Act, and they got them listed as endangered. Okay. And then another update every 5 years or so, the U.S. ESA has to be updated. So 2024, last year, they updated. No change, it's still endangered. Now, the critically endangered versus endangered part, let me just clarify that. With the IUCN, the critically endangered is the most urgent status any wildlife can have, any non-extinct wildlife could have. The next level is extinction. There's 13 small cetaceans, dolphins, porpoises, that are on this critically endangered list. Taiwan's white dolphin is one of them. And I would probably bet if nothing's done for them now, they may be the next group of animals to go extinct. The vaquita is very close. I don't know if you have heard about the porpoise in the Gulf of California and Mexico. There's only a few tens of them, maybe 10 at most, remaining. But they're being protected right now, so they may last longer than the Taiwanese white dolphin, which there's no protection at all, right? So there's this competition to be number two. The baiji, the Yangtze River, the freshwater dolphin in the Yangtze River in China has gone extinct for all intents and purposes. I don't think there's ever been another confirmed sighting of these animals. Lots of research had gone into the surveys to try to find baiji, and the researchers never found any. All right. With the U.S. ESA, the endangered is at that level too. They just have different categories, but it's that same level of high risk, highest risk. Okay. So why are these animals in this state, right? Back in 2004 and 2007, a large panel of international scientists gathered in Taiwan to look at all the things that may have caused these animals to be in such a critical state. After looking at many threats, we came up with 5 main categories. Okay, there's the loss of habitat, and everybody who's ever been to the west coast of Taiwan can see. Most of the dolphins' habitat, the coastal shallow waters, are actually gone. It's all reclaimed, right? So they're living at marginal habitats right now, and there's more reclamation going on. So the Taichung harbor is trying to expand the port, and this is very bad. In the area where they're expanding the port, we've seen dolphins, and even this year, multiple groups have seen dolphins in the area where they're trying to expand. And that area where they're trying to expand is the worst possible place for expansion because that's at the mouth of the very important estuary for these animals, the Dadu River. Anybody who's spent any time along the west coast of Taiwan know how bad the air quality is. With all the development, all the effluents and emissions coming out of the factories and the area, there's a lot of water pollution that also happens. And we got to remember, the dolphins are affected by both water pollution and air because they breathe air. Like humans, whatever we're suffering, they're breathing the same air. And actually, they're in the worst situation because pollutants like to accumulate right at the air-water interface. So they're coming up to breathe at the worst possible area of segment of the air. There's a loss of fresh water to estuaries, and this is likely leading to a decrease in fish, their food. To keep estuaries alive, it's one of the most productive parts of the marine system in the world, any estuary. If you reduce freshwater flow to the estuaries will die. So that's not very good. And there's very little water flowing to estuaries right now in Taiwan. It's being used up for industrial farming, just large industrial, heavy industrialization factories and whatnot. There's a noise issue that gets very complicated as well, but the environment in the shallow coastal waters of Taiwan, not a very quiet place for these animals. And then I'm going to talk mostly about fisheries interactions because that's an easier one in the sense of understanding what's happening and much easier one to deal with immediately. Okay, we'll talk a little bit more about that. So just to give you an idea of how bad Western Taiwan is, these are some major reclamation projects that have gone on for industrial, development, industrial projects. Almost nowhere along the west coast of Taiwan can you have a nice, safe place for these dolphins to live in, a nice natural place, until you get maybe down into the marginal areas south Taiwan and maybe further north, right? Their main area is very heavily industrialized. Recently, green energy has been a very large push in Taiwan, right? So land in Taiwan is very expensive. There's only so much land you can have for putting up turbines. Everybody's moved offshore. Moving too far offshore and too deep water, it costs more to put pilings down for turbines. So all the developers want to be as close as possible in water where people aren't living, but in water as shallow as possible because it's cheaper. And this is where the dolphins are, right? So they've been putting up all these turbines rapidly. There's a place let's see if I could get my mouse to work, right here in Zhanghua near the Zhangbing industrial area. They were laying the cables, the electrical cables, to reach some of these wind farms that are already up. They were doing that this summer, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. Can I go back in? So are these, and then there's some solar projects that, we could talk about later, but I don't want to focus on that too much. And solar projects are also potentially contributing to the extinction of these animals as well. All right. So there's a paper that a bunch of the scientists, along with myself, when we talked about this green energy, we're all for green energy. We all want the planet to stop warming, everything else. How blue are the green energy projects that are going on right now? We don't know, right? It doesn't seem like they're very blue or green if you want to look at it. All right, so if people are interested, this is published in a pretty prestigious journal called Trends in Ecology and Evolution. We question how green these things are when they do not take endangered wildlife into consideration properly. So this is along the west coast of Taiwan, near that place where I said they were doing the cable laying. This is it. You can see the Dadu, the Taichung thermal power plant there, which they're building 2 LNG stacks to convert to LNG, liquefied natural gas or natural gas. And I'll say right at the top of my mind right now, natural gas is not green. Right? People want you to believe it's green. It's maybe marginally better than coal, but it's not green. So to spend all that money to destroy habitat for an endangered dolphin to become marginally better is just not a green way of looking at things. So this was going on pretty much all during the 2 months of my research. They're laying down these cables. I was told they had not passed an EIA, and I don't see how they could have passed the EIA if the dolphins were considered. This is one of the highest density dolphin areas that we've ever known. Every time I wanted to show people dolphins of this group, I would say, this is the place you would go. This year, I didn't see a single one in this area. So clearly, they had an impact, right? These are very large ships. At any one time, you'll see 5 or 6 of these large ships in the area. They've got a barge with a crane there as well, and then they've got these high-powered inflatable boats. They're running workers back and forth from port at about 60 or 70 kilometers an hour. At sea, that's really fast, right through dolphin territory. Okay. So there's, and this boat down here, I believe, is a dredger. So they're digging up the shallow areas to lay the cable. Okay. So this was something I told Robin Bell and his group. One day I was out there early in the morning, and I saw something strange. These boats were out there. Thousands of dead fish within a kilometer or 2 of these boats. And that day I traveled well over 100 kilometers. Only this area had these dead fish. These are all catfish of some sort, bottom-dwelling fish. There's some characteristics even on that decomposed fish that you can look at, and anybody who knows fish will know that's a catfish of a marine catfish. So there were thousands of these. Now, I'm not a person to come out here. I can't blame this die-off on the activity that was going on. It just coincidentally happened to be all around their area. I believe what happened is the dredger probably cleaned out its pumps at the time, and these fish have been dead for a while. So it's probably in the boat, they're cleaning out the pumps, and they're distributed. We know this type of dolphin in other parts of the world. We don't know very much about what the Taiwanese white dolphins eat here in Taiwan. We just don't have that data, right? But other places in the world, Malaysia, Hong Kong, that I've been to and studied these dolphins, they eat this type of catfish. So even if they're not affecting the dolphins directly and killing them off, they're killing off the food, okay? And there's, of course, the noise displacement. It's very strange that this is the year they're there. We didn't see a single dolphin in this area, and then we see this large die-off of fish as well. So that's the green energy. I'll try to tie it back to you how their impacts can be mitigated and reduced if they really wanted to. Okay. The one threat that I can, as a person who studied fisheries and marine mammals for most of my career, can tell you is fisheries can be dealt with very immediately, very much overnight. You can stop the threat immediately. So these are net fisheries. These are gill nets and drift nets that are being used along the west coast of Taiwan. Many people don't know it is legal to use drift nets and gill nets in Taiwanese waters. A lot of people ask me, well, isn't it illegal? No, it's only illegal in the high seas, open international waters, because the rest of the world doesn't want people to be setting drift nets out there. Taiwan was one of the most infamous groups of fisheries to be using drift nets in the high seas in the past. Okay, so they don't do that anymore, which is good. But along the coastal waters in Taiwan, there's a lot of drift nets and a lot of gill nets still operating. So this is one of the main problems we've identified as killing the dolphins and injuring them directly. Okay, you can see a net around one of these animals, very close to one of these, what are called high flyers. They're marking one end of the net. They'll have two of these flags to indicate where the fishing net is. And that boat up there was setting a gill net as the dolphins were passing by. Okay. There's also the illegal trawling that's happening. So I've talked to government agencies about this many times. They said they're going to enforce this a little better. In Taiwan, it's illegal to have these trawlers. They're big nets that are dragged on the bottom of the seafloor to catch whatever they can. It's illegal for these boats to be within 3 nautical miles or about 5.5 kilometers from shore. They can't operate here. It's to protect the resources because these types of nets catch everything. They'll catch and kill everything, right? But it's still happening. So this summer I told Robin, I've had enough of taking pictures of the illegal fisher. I don't want to get them in trouble. That's why I'll always block off their registration numbers. I think it's up to the government to enforce. There's a Coast Guard station right there where that arrow is, where this is happening. Where I saw trawling happening this summer, same thing. If I could see them from where I am, I'm always very close to shore. They could see me. They could see the trawlers. So there's a lack of enforcement. And some of these dolphins, they may be fishing out of the trawlers, trying to pick out whatever fish is coming out of the nets. Sometimes they do make mistakes. We know this in Hong Kong. There's a group of animals that used to follow trawlers. Periodically, they'll get killed. Okay? And people make mistakes, like driving your car. Everybody knows not to hit a wall. Sometimes accidents happen. These animals can't have any accidents happen anymore. They just don't have the numbers to sustain these accident rates. Right? In Hong Kong, they've banned bottom trawls since I think, was it just pre-COVID, I think 2016, all banned. Not only to save the dolphins, but also to preserve the marine resources in Taiwan. If you have this type of fishery along western Taiwan, the marine resources will decline. Okay. So I used to show lots of nasty pictures of, gross pictures of dolphins with incredible injuries. But I'm not going to do that now. I'll just give you the numbers. About 60% of the animals that currently exist have serious scars from net entanglements. They're still alive, but they've suffered some incredible injuries. At this level, it's not sustainable for years of data to get a good model to run again. But it gives you some metrics to look at to see how bad it was. So 2016, we were looking at about 60-ish animals that we photographed over a certain number of a certain amount of effort, research effort that we put into it. With the same amount of effort, you can see in 2025, it's the worst ever. And that's a huge decline. Okay? That will likely change a little bit as we analyze the data, but it won't change by too much. Okay? That's one way of looking at the decline. Another decline is, again, the same number of survey trips that we would run each year. At about 18, we were able to do about 18 this year, 17, 18. You can see pre-COVID was 2016, 2017, 2018. That's the closest years of pre-COVID data we had. 2019, we didn't have any data because of other issues with equipment, so we couldn't get out there. But look where 2024, 2025 was. 2023 was a bad year for us for equipment and weather issues as well. That's a really big decline. At 17 trips, we maxed out at about 37 different individuals. Now, every individual in this population, when we photograph them, I know. And sometimes I know before I even look at the photographs who they are. That's how few animals are left. Okay? So it's looking really, really bad. I would predict if nothing's done by the end of this year or next year, the animals are beyond hope for recovery. The extinction is happening right now. Okay? The good news is there is a solution. In 2019, again, another bunch of experts got together to discuss, okay, if we were to stop the gill netting, how do we do this? Nobody wants the fishermen to be, to suffer from this as well. We actually like fishermen. We like them to be out there because they're good eyes to monitor what's happening in the marine environment. However, the methods that they're using are not very good. There's a good solution out there, and I think I'll let Robin talk about what we call the win-win-win solution, where industry, the green energy folks, can contribute along with the government agencies, and so that the fishermen don't get penalized, they get compensated properly. The green energy project actually is kind of like buying dolphin credits and helping to reduce their net impact, right? They're not killing them outright, but they're killing them slowly in a different way. So I understand the desire of Taiwan to go green, and everybody should be going green, but there are ways of going green, and then there's ways of going green. The way it's being done now, it seems like it's, at all costs to go green. I understand there's, pressures from, consumers in the West for things like Apple products, iPhones. Consumers want iPhones to be built on green energy. So Apple requires or is pledged to do that with its supply chain. And a lot of the companies that supply Apple with components are in Taiwan, and they want green energy. Now, if the Western world, the consumers found out that the green energy here is contributing to the extinction of these dolphins, is that the green that they're asking for? I highly doubt it, right? So I think, Apple has to do its due diligence to make sure that the so-called green energy is actually green and not killing off other wildlife in this push to become green. Okay? It can be done. It's not a choice of dolphins or green energy. It's a choice of more profits or less profits in doing it properly, right? If these dolphins go extinct and the green energy industry contributed to it, they can never wash their hands from that fact. Extinction is forever. They can't bring them back. That green energy is always forever tainted, right? With contributing to the extinction of these animals. So I think people have to think about that. Yes, green is good, but it's about profits here, right? So I think I'll leave it at that, and I could take questions. I don't know what the process is, or if Robin wants to come up and talk about the solution that's available out there. And the government knows about the solution. Okay, it's whether or not they really are interested in acting on it. Yeah, John? maybe
讲得不太好，我就不献丑了。就是那个有一张预测它那个减少速率嘛，从2002年的99只到2025年20年之后已经只剩一半这样子。那您预估的话，最悲观就是毫无作为的话，他们会什么时候灭绝？谢谢。
So the question was, based on these numbers, 最美观的吗？还是就是我最乐观？Yeah, the worst case scenario. Okay, so the worst case scenario.
对，就是最不乐观的，
最不乐观啊。其实我刚刚讲的意思就是，我们真的不知道，全球都不知道，因为我们没有追踪一群海豚这么久，有这么好的资料，所以我们不知道到哪一个阶段会下降，就下降很快。像那个扬子江的百吉豚跟那个墨西哥湾墨西哥那个加州湾那个 vaquita， 那个等到我们知道已经有问题，下降很快，几乎就是下降到绝种。那这种海豚它的繁殖率的它的 biology reproductive biology 我们还不知道，因为这种动物可以活很久，所以你可能在野外还可以看到几只，可是可能没有办法生，可能50-60年没有办法生，可是你还是感觉没有绝种，因为还可以看得到它们。比如是那个 the Galapagos tortoise， 有一个地龟，好像 George， 它名字叫 George， 活了几百年，可是他们一直讲没有绝种啊，可是你剩下一只公的，你要怎么？对我们来讲，我们科学家有一个不一样的绝种的那个字，就叫 functional extinction， 已经没有办法救，它没有办法回来，就是你一直看到它们死，可是他们一直可以活得很久，所以你不会知道它哪时候真的最后一只死掉。我在猜，再过可能5年，假设都没有改变鱼翅纹的问题跟台湾的环境的问题，是没有救了。现在也有可能没有救，我是没有办法跟你讲最乐观跟最我在 the worst case scenario 我没有办法跟你讲。
就是它的族群数量要维持到什么样的程度，它才能继续繁殖这样子？
不知道。所以我的老婆她是专门算这种东西，她有一个东西叫 population viability analysis， 她就是可以算到，她可以模拟。可是科学家用模拟是让我们大概知道一个野生动物的族群，它的反应是什么。很平常我们在讲是模拟，每个 model 都错的，可是有些可以帮助我们。所以那些 model 也不是很准，我们才没有办法跟你讲到最低是要到什么程度才可以一直繁殖。对我来讲是，我想要看那个族群的数量往上，对我来讲这个就是一个很好的 sign， 对不对？所以第一是停止下降，第二是往上，那这样子就有机会，有希望。可是一直下降就是会，我们还没有讨论到那个他们的基因的问题，几乎每一只应该是都有亲的关系，所以那个又是一个更复杂的问题。假设他们往上的时候，他们还有一个可能就是到一个阶段又下降，因为有些动物就这样子，因为太多 inbreeding。这很难回答。
谢谢，不好意思。
And I would like to know that how can you calculate the amount? I'm the reporter from Environmental Information Center in Taiwan, and I would like to know how could you calculate the amount of the dolphin? Because you have mentioned that the Taiwanese dolphins have year-round characters, but I don't know how 你怎么辨别它? How can you Yeah.
哦，你
that's
我们怎么知道
really
它一直
Yeah,
待在
yeah,
这
yeah,
儿？
yeah, yeah.
因为每一只都认得，所以比如说 ，Let me show you something. Okay, I can do this. So she's asking, how do we know they're always here? Let me see if I could do something here. Okay, let's see. 所以这个是一只叫 Cupcake. Oops, is it showing? No. Just wait. Of course, 这个拿出来. There we go.
Closer to the microphone.
Okay. Let's see. There we go. 所以这只是一只动物，我们已经认了很久。它背鳍每一只的斑点都不一样，所以每年我们跟着它，可以看到它慢慢改变，改变得很慢。所以比如说2011年拍到这只，2012年拍到一样这只，已经挂线了，挂网子。2013年，所以从这个阶段到现在2025年，很容易变出来是谁嘛？几乎每一只我们看到都认得，因为它的斑点都不一样，每一只的斑点不一样。Okay, so every animal has a different spotting pattern on the dorsal fins. And we photograph both sides. We know what they look like. Even before I take the photographs into the lab to look at them, I know them already. I've seen them for 20 years. I could tell you 70% of the animals at sea who they are before we go into the lab and confirm. Right? So, and we have a catalog of 150 animals since 2002. A lot of them have died, but we still have the catalog of the photographs of them. So every year we go out, we take photographs, we bring them in to confirm that animal's alive. We can't tell you if they're dead, right? They still could be out there that we didn't photograph, but we can tell you they're still alive. After about 4 or 5 years of not photographing, they never show up again. That means about 3 years, 4 years, we don't photograph the same individuals, they're probably dead. Right? So that's why it takes 20 years to understand these animals. And we know who's the mom of different babies now, too. It's taken that long to understand them. So Cupcakes has had 4, maybe 5 babies since I've watched her grow. I've seen animals born to the point of having babies themselves from when they're babies. It takes about 15 years, 12 to 15 years. Right? So 20 years, that gives me just enough time to see early animals that were born to some of these moms. The moms die and the babies start having babies as well.
Probably one last question.
Oh, this one. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Maybe to finish up this one. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's correct. Based on the real observations.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what I showed at the end, 2025, is we only photographed 37 individuals, no more than 37. Right? There are more out there. We don't always get every individual every year, but that doesn't matter because the analyses will correct for that. Okay?
I get it.
So the actual number will be a little bit higher, but not very high above that. Okay? That's why my estimate is about 45 to 50. Okay.
Hi, I'm Amber. I'm from RTI, Radio Taiwan International. I'm just wondering, is it necessary when an animal gets to this level of extinction to have some kind of like a breeding program or some kind of conservation effort in this way? Is that something that typically happens?
So people talk about this all the time, and so the vaquita, let's use that as an example. The vaquita, it was down to that point where even the researchers who do not like the breeding programs decided to try because there's no hope for them. They went out, they caught 2 animals, 2 females, which they needed. Like I said, the females are the most important. They caught 2 females. One died immediately. The other one was in such a bad shape they released it, probably died. So there's that risk of going out to capture them and killing even more to further the extinction, hasten the extinction. The second problem is if we capture these animals and bring them into captivity, we have no idea how to keep them alive. Every animal is different. A dolphin is not a dolphin. Every species is different. Every subspecies is different. We don't know how to keep these. We don't even know what these animals eat right now, right? And then and we don't know how to reproduce them or convince them to reproduce in captivity. Then you have the issue of when you are successful at reproducing, what do you do with these animals? Dolphins are not like fish where you reproduce a whole bunch and you throw them in the sea and hope for the best. It takes a best, an animal's got to get to in the teens to be able to reproduce. Then every 5 years they produce a young. Are you going to release this young and without a mom to teach it how to be a dolphin? This is the problem. These animals are highly social. They need the information coming down from other generations to be successful. We don't know what these animals are doing here in Taiwan, but killer whales with very similar biologies, the females are very important to transmitting cultural information down to the offspring. There's no way we can do that. Right? So there are very, very large risks, and I think if that's something we are going to try with these animals, it's going to cost a lot of money, and the success rate is going to be almost zero. Right? So there's so many things to learn about these animals with husbandry and reproduction. So if that's where we're going, or that's what we get to, these animals are gone. And you're successful with all this, where do you put them back into? This environment with all these threats? So it's a very difficult situation to look at with captive breeding. Yeah.
One last question about LNG.
哦，
不好意思，想问一下，就是台中港要新建第5天然气接收站哦，您觉得盖下去对他们族群的那个 impact 是什么？这样
非常大，因为 what was the number that I did for you the analysis? About 92% of the animals pass through the area. 所以从我们认的有100多只，在我们的 catalog 里面，90%以上都会经过那个地方。所以那时候他们要扩大的时候，他们的计划有请我去问我可不可以帮他们做研究，看那个 impact 多大。我讲可以省你的钱，不需要给我钱，我就去分析给你看。90%以上这些海豚不会被影响，因为他们要经过那个台中港那里。差不多90%我们认的海豚都在大肚溪口都会出现，所以大肚溪口是他们一个很要紧的一个基地。那当然扩大那个大肚溪口北边就是那个台中港，再扩大基地已经消失在那边，又再扩大，海豚已经不花太多时间在台中港那里，那个水太深了，几乎他们是从大肚溪口要到大安跟大甲溪口。要经过那个地方，速度很快。这次我有跟追踪一群，他们平常看到他们的速度超过3-4公里到5公里每个小时，他们一般游泳的那个速度。这次我算，从我离开他们到北边，又碰到他们一样那个2-3只，跑了最慢，从一个点到还有一个点，跟那个时间算8到9公里一个小时。应该是更多，因为它不会从一点到还有一个点，它是游来游去，所以它速度非常快，它不会待在那个地方太久，所以影响会很大。像你把它扩大，它要游更深海，再过那个台中港，会更多影响，更大的 impact。
那所谓影响是什么？害他们要绕远路，还是就是？
对，第一是害他们要绕远路，第二是会有更多很多因为盖这个港就是要让更多LNG 的船进来，所以你的声音海的声音更多船的怎么叫 traffic。后来那个海豚要绕那个地方到海外一边，还有个比较安静的地方，要绕更远，要更危险。那也会更破坏大肚溪口，所以这种开发案子很多影响。当然我们不知道细内容哪一部分是最大的影响，可是这群海豚就是因为一直下降，不管你加一点点影响还好，还是多一点点就会加更多影响。以前每一个开发案子讲我们会影响一点点就没有问题，可是问题它在下降，没有一个东西是叫 sustainable。你加一点点不可能 sustainable， 不管你多少多小，它在下降的时候没有 sustainable。
Hello. Oh, it does.
Anyway, Director Jen is here, and I believe that he and Taiwan have documented the dolphins that go through the Taiwan Harbor and presented a few years ago at the Taiwan Harbor, and the information was not did not register. He's been saying this for years. We know Jeffersonian situation.
Yeah. The last thing I want to say is, I've gone through this with so many government agencies, and everybody tells me that they're doing all these wonderful conservation programs, and there's absolutely no conservation. Everybody talks about their conservation program. We're doing monitoring research. We're doing public awareness. And then when I ask, what are you doing for the dolphins? It's zero, right? So they're hiring people to do more research, which is not needed when they're critically endangered. What you need to do is spend that money on the dolphins, on actually stopping threats. Not a single one of those 5 threats have been reduced. If anything, they've been increased. So an interesting observation I've had was, as these projects are going on, fishermen, I've noticed that they fish more with nets. And they know that there's potentially a compensation package coming. So they need to go out there to fish to be documented as being fishing so they can go and claim compensation when the compensation is going to be paid. They don't care if they catch fish. I've talked to fishermen. They don't care. They just need to be on record to say they've gone fishing, they deserve compensation. When, for example, like maybe the LNG or when Taisua was dishing out money, they want to be part of that compensation. So there's actually more fishing going on now by less professional fishermen, I would say, and causing even more potential problems for the dolphins, even more risk. So there's these strange games going on that's actually causing even more risk. That's why there is no time left. The gill nets have to be stopped immediately. And that's not the end game, right? So if you stop the gill nets, these dolphins may still go extinct. That's just step one, right? That buys us time to deal with the other major threats. So it's a whole series of steps that need to be taken. But if you don't start with the first one, you don't have to worry about the other steps because there won't be any time for the other steps. The gill nets are killing them and injuring them. It's the most direct injury. The other problems like the pollution, the loss of food, that takes much longer, right? So, but if you don't stop the immediate threat, you don't have to worry about the other threats later on. Okay?
那接下来我们把我们的时间交给我们那个蛮野心族的创办人文鲁宾博士。
Okay, well, thank you all for coming. I'm a little sorry that the turnout isn't better. The timing wasn't so good because of the air raid, and I had requested that the European Chamber of Commerce help distribute the press notice, but they said since it's not an ECCT-sponsored event, they would not be able to do that. So we sent out notices to about 60 or 70 developers and companies. I don't know how you got word of this event, but thank you very much, John, and thank you all for coming, and thank everyone who's been doing some work on this. One of the main reasons that, I was thinking you don't really want to hear from me. John has all this good information, and the people who should be here aren't here. I mean, in addition to you all. But I have been working with John now since 2006 or 2006. It is really depressing, not to work with him, but to watch just, every day. That's what we're doing. And we're talking to government officials. And they are listening, and many would like to do something, but the system doesn't let them. And I had a discussion recently, and please, those of you with organizations or with such as companies or government agencies, if you take offense, please give me a chance and come and see me and we'll talk. Because I do not believe that there is any person in this world who wants to see these dolphins go extinct. Any person like us. So we say a natural person, a 自然人. I believe we all want good air for us and good air for the dolphins, good water, good habitat. However, we are dealing and have been dealing, AI is the big, everyone talks about AI fairly recently, but actually most of us have been dealing with AI for a long, long time. And that AI that I'm talking about is your organization. Because you may care, but your organization, and specifically organizations that are companies, they have one thing that means that's meaningful, and that's to make money. And let's face it, these dolphins have been costing them money. And the government, they have what we call their 政绩的考量, how do you say 政绩? Their accomplishments, their political, what have they done? And so the government wants to introduce green energy, so-called green energy. They've got this 1,000 turbine wind turbine plan for the waters off the west coast of Taiwan, and they've got to have results. So it's not looking good. I don't know. I'll go through this since a colleague of mine helped prepare it. I may as well. So I used to work for the companies that are the kinds of companies that are developing offshore wind, solar, other forms of energy, green, LNG. I worked for about 25 years for those organizations and made a lot of money. And then I started giving all the money away, and now I'm leading this organization. And we need donations. So if anyone has any extra capacity, it's always appreciated. That picture on the left is me getting my Taiwan ID. Every day I still am told, "Oh, 你的中文讲得很好," and I said, "But I'm Taiwanese." But that's it. So okay. So something that got me started thinking about, do I still want to be a corporate lawyer and represent these businesses that I don't blame them. I mean, that is what they are. That's their purpose. And it's just that we need to come up with some better systems to control what they do. So the concept of community, to me, includes the white dolphins. They're part of what we do. And I would highly recommend a guy named Derek Jensen. And if you need persuasion, but this is just the sustainability is not something that is, she misspelled environmental. Okay, anyway, so for our involvement with the dolphins, I started this association in 2003. 2005, I was appointed as a committee member to the Taiwan Environmental Impact Assessment Committee. That was a 2-year term, and it was in the second year of that term that some cases came in, including the Guoguang Petrochemical Project, the Formosa Steel which is Formosa Plastics, their steel plant, which would have been was planned to be right next to the offshore island development, the 6th naphtha cracker, and a number of other projects. But I believe it was the Formosa Steel project. John and his colleague came in and joined the meetings. In Taiwan, in principle, our EIA meetings, including the subcommittee meetings, are all open to the public. And they came in, I think he had just arrived for his survey work that year, and they talked to the panel about the dolphins. And I had actually heard of this about 2 or 3 years previously when Jane Goodall, I think she may have heard of from the 2004, the first international workshop on the dolphins. And she said, oh, what about this population of pink dolphins that's recently been discovered? So I'd kind of heard of that. And then we'd also been aware, because the U.S. military was testing a lot of low-frequency sonar, and I believe John wrote an article about a number of strandings on Taiwan's west coast, and that was traced to the U.S. Navy's sonar program, underwater sonar, which I guess all sonar is. So we had heard of this, and then John shows up at this meeting, and the next day my colleague goes with him down to central Taiwan and actually sees some of the dolphins. She comes back, writes up a story, and that's how we got involved in this. So this is like May, June 2006. And we took this to Professor Chen Yufeng at Providence University, and John's colleague went with me, and we kind of gave a presentation on the dolphins, and everyone got excited, and let's start a coalition, a group of NGOs in Taiwan that would be dedicated to monitoring the situation with these dolphins and advocating to improve their situation. So that was Wild at Heart and the Taiwan Ecology Academy of Ecology, the Society of Wilderness, Huangye, and several other groups, Taiwan Yunlin Miaohui, and several other groups got together, and we formed what we then called the Mazu's Fish Conservation Union, the MFCU. And that was like 2006, 2007. We were concerned with various issues, but it wasn't until 2007 when John organized, and we helped out with organizing the second international workshop. So that was 2007. We held it in Zhanghua, and again, this panel, maybe 10, 15, or around 15 international, the cream of the crop in international cetacean biology and conservation attended, and it was at that meeting that some things were decided. We put together an international group of scientists and conservation people, and at the end of that year, this group was formally put together in South Africa at the Marine Mammalogy Society conference. January 7th, I'm sorry, in 2008, this group of Taiwanese conservation NGOs went to the Xingzheng Yuan, went to the Executive Yuan to petition for the government to immediately address the 5 threats that John just mentioned and which were identified at the 2007 International Workshop. And those are the fisheries, the loss of fresh water, the air and water pollution, the loss of habitat, and the noise issues. So those were all done. We petitioned for that, and the government started responding after about 6 months because we went again just after the dolphins were categorized this population as critically endangered in 2008 by the IUCN. We held another protest at the Council of Agriculture because the government wasn't doing anything, and they soon thereafter held the first meeting with conservation groups and different government agencies, including the Gongyeju, the Industrial Development Bureau, the Energy Bureau, fisheries. We didn't have an Ocean Affairs Council at the time, but Ministry of Interior, all these different departments, Department of Defense, Ministry of Defense. So all these agencies met, and it was decided, well, we need to know where the dolphins are. So Wild, working with John's information and his help and guidance, and Alan Chun at Academia Sinica, we gave the government a proposal which we said this is probably the habitat of the Taiwanese white dolphin. And now at that time we were still Sousa chinensis, calling it the Chinese white dolphin, but believing that this was an isolated population. And we were constantly having to address the local experts, and that was from National Taiwan University, Zhou Lianxiang, who refused our invitation to join this international group, but she was the go-to person for the Taiwan government and had been ever since, I think, the mid-90s, the dolphin slaughter in Penghu, and she was called in to help the government, and her opinions that, number one, the dolphins may go away and they may go to China, they may be part of a larger population group in China. Those were things that really delayed a lot of awakening and realization by the government that that the dolphins were truly endangered, and this was an issue that needed to be addressed quickly. In the meantime, there were many of these high-ticket projects that were going on along the West Coast that the government wanted to get through, and the dolphins, again, were an obstacle to this. Well, the KK chemical plant was canceled, and they were the Formosa Plastics plant went to Vietnam, and the dolphins kind of got a little more recognition, but the government's actions basically have never really addressed those areas that progress could be made. The international cetacean community believes that the fish nets, the gill nets have to go in order for the dolphins to have a chance to survive. And we've had a series of international workshops. We had 2 on fisheries in 2011 and 2013. And then then we had a session, an international program on wind energy, the dolphins, and noise in 2017. And finally, in 2019, we had another conference in Canada. Representatives from Taiwan's Ocean Affairs Council were there, as well as a number of local and international experts. And we came up with what was called a win-win-win strategy, that we've got fishers on the one hand, we've got dolphins on the other hand, and we've got the wind farms and green energy, which the government was promoting. So we've got the West Coast has these 3 very distinct cultures: dolphins, fishers, and green energy. And our proposal was, because the energy companies are putting in so much money for community, to give back to the community, these various funds, that they should focus this on addressing the fishers issue and to take the pressure off the dolphins by giving the fishers an alternative way of making a living. They can continue to fish, but just don't do it with nets. Well, this project, was in 2019. We came out with a paper on this. It's in Chinese, it's in English. We've taken it to different government agencies. However, it's 6 years later now, and really not much has been done. Well, I shouldn't say not much has been done. A lot has been done by the government, but it hasn't been done in a way that has really any positive impact on the recovery of the Taiwanese white dolphins. They have the Ocean Affairs Council has come up with many plans. Many organizations are working on white dolphin education and awareness and so forth, but these are not measures. They're really measures that are designed, appear to be designed to look like the government cares and is doing something about it, but there's really no substantive help to the dolphins. So there's just lots of energy going into the dolphins. And my own take now, I mean, why am I still doing this? If extinction is imminent, well, there still is a little bit of hope for these dolphins. But also, if we can't save them, as John pointed out, this is one of the best documented, or will be one of the best documented extinctions ever. And perhaps it has some value there that we can give it to other places, other groups that are seeking to preserve other populations of species on the brink of extinction. And so I think it does have it is worthwhile in that regard. And so I think our photographers for documenting this, and I hope that we can make a good record of this. But there is still some hope. And I was born in America, and I grew up there for 21 years, and then I came to Taiwan, and I just love this place. This is a very, very special place in the world. We're not a member of the UN, and there's a lot of things that we do differently, I think, than other countries. I still don't understand this place. I've been here almost 50 years. I don't pretend to understand it. But I do know that we do some things a little bit differently, and I think the way that the mainstream world United Nations stuff have been doing things is leading to the extinction of the human race, and maybe that's a good thing. My wife insisted I go see the new Jurassic Park movie, and in the movie they talk about 99.99% of all species have gone extinct since the Earth has been formed. So I mean, the dolphins go extinct, no big deal. In the big picture, the humans go extinct, no big deal in the big picture. But we're not in the big picture. We're in today. And we can probably do something. And Taiwan, I think, is really in a unique position. I mean, if we were able to save these dolphins, and maybe through our win-win-win proposal for the fishers and the energy companies and the dolphins all win. The win-win-win. And the fourth win would be the Taiwan government, because we would do something that no other country has been able to do. And I think that our lack of being bound by this United Nations and mainstream stuff, we just might have a chance to do it. I still believe that. So we have some, our organization, Wild at Heart, was formed as to give legal assistance to environmental groups, to animals, to fishers, to other marginalized populations. So we go to court sometimes. We sue government agencies. We sue companies. And we recently got a really good development in the courts. Basically, we brought a case against the EPA, or the Ministry of Environment, related to a project that Taiwan Power, a wind energy project. And initially, the other parties were saying we didn't have standing, that we didn't have a legal stake in the controversy. But we were able to get the court to accept our standing, and this is quite a new development. It basically says that the dolphins can go to court and sue. So it may not do them much good because they may not be around for much longer. But the ruling was that animals, like children, may not have legal capacity, and so they do require like a guardian. And so that is something that at least is one step that gives me a little more optimism. But we really need to do a lot more. We really need a person who is internationally inclined and would like to come and work with us to get the word out a little bit more with the international community. So I'm going to leave this to any discussion or questions that people would like to raise. I can speak Chinese too if that's necessary. So that's it seems that the thing has gone out. Okay, so that's really all I wanted to say. Get down. Anyone want to comment? Okay. The air raid drill is over, right? 这个好像没有当机完是怎样 ？OK.
Questions？ 我太矮了，所以我必须要垫脚。大家有没有什么想要提问的，或者想要提出来讨论的？如果没有的话，我们就是假如说接下来有任何的问题的话，Robin 在这边，那个 John Wang 他现在也正在外面受访，假如说有需要一些其他的讨论的话，也可以私底下找他们。那一些媒体的素材的话，等一下我会放在我们一个云端硬碟上面，再分享给大家。那会后的新闻稿的话，大概会在3点半之前提供给大家。那就谢谢大家今天来，然后就是很感谢大家可以花这么多时间参与到现在，谢谢。